Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And considering we are in the month of Halloween, or what those of us in the craft call Samhain, on October 31st, I thought it would be nice to dedicate my shows this month to the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, and psychic messages. And I have a wonderful guest this evening. She's been on my show before, and I'm always honored to have her back. And my special guest this evening is Betsey Lewis. And Betsey Lewis is an author, internationally renowned psychic medium, talk radio host, and Earth Mysteries investigator. Inherited the gift of prophecy from her mother. For over 40 years, Betsey has investigated UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, angels, aliens, and other Earth mysteries. She practices Reiki, Kriya Yoga, astrology, tarot, and numerology, and regressive hypnosis. In the past 10 years, Betsey was mentored by Native American ceremonial and spiritual leaders on the natural way of life. She provides psychic readings for an international clientele. And her websites are www.betseylewis.com and www.blogtalkradio.com/Rainbow Vision. And Betsey has several books on Amazon.com. Check them out. Mystic Revelations of 13 and Communicating with the Other Side, like Teresa Caputo, The Long Island Medium, which is a current release or recent. And of course, we're going to be talking about Communicating with the Other Side, True Experiences of a Psychic Medium tonight as well, which I'm looking forward to. And please welcome Betsey to the show this evening. Hi, Betsey.
Hi, great to be back on your show again, Solaris. How are you?
I'm good. I'm, plus or minus all the weirdness on the world. Yeah, I'm doing great. And it's great to hear you.
I wanted to correct you for just a minute. Communicating with the Other Side, the title changed to True Experiences of a Psychic Medium.
Okay, excellent.
But you had it right. Originally it was that, but it did change.
And what made you change it?
Well, a lot of people were confused that, I was writing about Teresa Caputo and,
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I thought, I just don't want to go through that anymore, and trying to explain when I said like Teresa Caputo, I was comparing my gift, of a medium like hers. So, that wasn't a good thing.
Oh, wow.
It didn't work out. So,
well, now you have it all the way you want it. So that's good.
I do.
Excellent. Well, I'm really happy to have you on tonight. It's always a pleasure.
You.
Yeah, it's just a blessing to have you on. So what have you been up to?
Well, I'm working on a new book, Earth Energy, about honoring our planet and using indigenous wisdom. And because of my background and with Native Americans, indigenous people, just in the United States and some in Canada, and just honoring Earth and what I've learned through the years, because I grew up in the mountains and my father loved to go camping. He had property in Contact, Nevada. So I was outside all the time. I was just, around nature, the birds and frogs and everything. And I learned a lot. I used to observe everything all the time, the clouds and just everything. And I lived at a lake for a while. My parents had purchased a lake in the 60s, and we had that for several years until 1969. And I lived in the water.
Nice.
I was a fish. But no, I think right now with what's happening with our planet, we really have to get back to a simpler life. We have to start honoring Mother Earth. She has a consciousness. Everything has a consciousness. And we've forgotten all these things that the indigenous people have always known and honored. And, once we realize that, our planet is alive and everything has a consciousness, even all the animals, then we will get back into balance again. But right now we're so out of balance, and you probably can agree with that, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. To me, it seems like we've opened the gates of hell, and we're all experiencing this. And a lot of people don't see it, but obviously we're very tuned in, and we can pick up on a lot of things that are happening. So yeah, there's so much going on right now. And you're right. I think it's about reprogramming the mind to resonate with higher dimensional consciousness. And that would actually allow people to see things on a multidimensional perspective versus their linear programming. You know what it reminds me of, Betsey, is it's like a psychic drain. It's like everything we're experiencing from day to day. It's so dramatic. I mean, there's so much theater that it's just pulling and pulling and pulling on the energy field and the psychic energy centers. And I'm sure you probably pick up on that.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that the Earth's vibrational rate is being pulled down, and so are we. The frequencies are being pulled down, and, that's what they want. And, we could call them whatever you want to call them, dark the family of dark, the elite, the Illuminati, whoever, but they are out there. They do want these dark things to happen to our planet. Maybe a lot of these earth changes are caused by certain people too, with the chemtrails and with HARP and so many other things. But we've just got so much going on right now. I know there are other natural things happening. There's just so much happening. UFOs being seen all over the planet, these weird orbs that are being seen in the sky, meteors being seen all over the world too, coming in. We've got asteroids that have been coming in. There's just, the strange booms. I'm sure you've heard about that too.
Yeah. Are those still going on?
Oh, yeah.
They are. Okay. I kind of subsided for a while. I didn't hear anything about it. Now, you did mention something on Facebook about the UFOs and the fact that you have a sense that maybe we're going to have more UFOs, or maybe some kind of a mass landing or something. What you
I don't know about a landing, but I have a feeling it's going to be over a major city.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I'm wondering, do you think that's going to be a false flag, like a Project Bluebeam, or?
I think it's going to be the real deal. I really do. And, it's interesting I think it was, what was it, 1992, Los Angeles is one of the biggest hotspots of UFOs. And of course, with this Malibu structure seen off the coast, there's just been a lot of UFOs. But I didn't know that there was a mass sighting over LA just a few years ago. And that wasn't reported. I just found out about that after watching a program about UFOs. So I went, whoa.
What year was that?
Let me look here real quick. I'll have to go to my website real quick because I wrote about, beginning in 1800s, before the Wright brothers flew, there was all kinds of reports going on about UFOs. And then in 1942, right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, this huge, massive UFO hovered over LA, and they started shooting rounds at it. There was 1,400 anti-aircraft rounds fired at this thing. And there was shrapnel all over. It injured a lot of people, and it did nothing to whatever this UFO was. And people, were just, they thought maybe it was something, from the Japanese. They didn't know what it was. And then later, the military came out and said it was a balloon.
Oh, right. Yeah, everything's a balloon these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I know. But to answer your question here, let me see here. I'll go to my website real quick here.
I know you're really on it. I applaud you for that. You're really tracking the earthquakes and UFOs and everything else.
Oh, I know. I've always been into all these things. I can't explain it, but I've just had a fascination all my life for these incredible things. And I've always felt that there were going to be some massive changes with the earth, and here we are. We're in those times, and I've always felt it.
Yeah, what's interesting, I didn't know if I was going to live to see it, and I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, quite honestly, but we are right there riding the wave. There's no doubt about it.
We are. Yeah, here we are. So let me see that. I'll tell you about something. Okay. Let's see. It was 1992 that Topanga Canyon, that night, hundreds of UFOs covered the skies, flooding police switchboards. So that was over Topanga Canyon. And then on the morning of November 2010, there was this strange mystery missile that was fired off the California coast. And the Pentagon said they had no clue what it was. So, that's still a mystery. So there's just a lot of things going on out there.
Wow, it certainly is. Yeah. Well, I have a sense that we are going to be heading for some alternate reality, so to speak, and hopefully it will be a positive and not a negative. But all this negativity, whatever you want to call it, to me, it just has to be reset. It's so toxic right now. And I know some people don't pick up on it, but how can you not notice it? I mean, and how can I not address it when I'm on air? I simply can't avoid it. So something to look at for sure. And of course, it all kind of entwines itself with the paranormal, with spirits and consciousness, because it's really about intelligent energy and consciousness in general, which is where we're heading in dialogue. I mean, we're talking about spirits and the soul and energy, and all life forms contain consciousness, which means, when you do horrible things to mankind, what is the repercussion, and where does the soul go? And when it transfers out, where does it wind up? Where does it wind up in the end of ends? I mean, does it get stuck in a phantom zone, or is it allowed to progress onto a higher level of consciousness? So I'd like your thoughts on that.
Oh, I was watching a program the other day, and it's called The Haunted on Animal Planet. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was really interesting. They went to this insane asylum in Pennsylvania. It was built in 1851, and they just did horrible things to people there. In fact, they were actually experimenting on animals and did cruel, horrible things to animals. And so this crew went in there, and there was all kinds of paranormal things going on there. They just had a real dark sense. They brought in a medium who said she could feel the dark energy there. And, that kind of energy, it could be imprint energy from all the negative, pain and everything else that went into the structure itself, into the wood, into the cement, everything. It goes into everything. And there could be hauntings too, because people get stuck in this in-between world where they're next to the earth and they just don't know how to get on to the other side, into the light.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad. Even animals get trapped there that have been abused.
Right,
So,
I can imagine. I don't know if you hear my dog playing with his toy in the background. I'm trying to mute that out. He got all charged up for the show anyway. But yeah, you're right about that. There is some kind of a residual effect, and obviously it needs to be cleared. I don't think anything is getting cleared right now. I think everything is just a regurgitation of psychic energy. That's my own impression, is that what I'm seeing, even with people who are alive, they're regurgitating all this stuff in the atmosphere. It doesn't have any place to go, and it's not getting cleared because nobody has spiritual hygiene, or very few do.
Right.
So what do you do with all that? And I'm sure you, being very, very sensitive, must be picking up on an awful lot.
Oh, yes. And you're so right about, our whole planet is encircled with all this negativity of, battlefields from all that negative energy, the Civil War, go back to the Roman days, the battles. There's just so much energy that's been put out there around the ethers around our planet. And I think together it would take a lot of prayers, a lot of positive thinking to heal all those entities that are trapped on our earth.
Right.
And certainly I believe in ghosts and, spirits, ghosts, they do exist. There are hauntings. I believe people that don't know that they actually passed on, or when they did die, it was some traumatic event or anger, hate, that they just lock, that energy is still there. They still can't release and go on, which is sad. There could be entities from thousands of years ago when you think about it. And that's the sad part,
I totally agree. Well, it's kind of like looping. They're looping in like a little program almost, where they get a residual. Well, basically what you learn here is what you take to the next level. I mean, if people are constantly under a very primordial behavioral pattern, which is very concerning, they're going to go to the next level that way with the programming. And obviously, who's going to guide them out of it? Now, if they have a strong faith or belief system, then obviously that would help and assist it. But at the same time, I mean, have you been subjected to a lot of different kinds of spirits?
I haven't. I've only had the good spirits, never anything negative.
Very good.
Thank goodness. But, my uncle, my step-uncle, William Peter Blatty, that wrote The Exorcist, they said that when he was filming The Exorcist in Georgetown, Washington, Washington, D.C., that there were a lot of weird things going on. Now, I don't know if it's true. There were a couple of cast members that had deaths in the family. There was a lot of strange things that showed up on the film. And, I think when you start engaging those dark energies, you bring them about and you attract them.
Right.
And I think other people can attract them too, through alcohol, through a lot of drug use. And when you lower your vibrations, you make yourself available to these dark forces. And I know they exist.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah. Well, basically, they're created through manifestation. I mean, it's old alchemy, but literally, we manifest it will our own reality. And it doesn't matter if you believe or not, you're manifesting it. So if these people are connected to dark force energies, or what I would consider dark force energies, then they're going to be manifested in some way. Yeah. And, it's interesting about The Exorcist and the connection you have to that's your step-uncle, right?
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty wild. So the vibration alone in that film is very disturbing, if you ask me.
It is. I agree with you. Totally agree with you.
It definitely was pulling in some bad energy and some boogies, and I don't know. I mean, I was never really tuned into it much, but the brief moments I kind of tuned in and was just kind of analyzing it, it was very, very heavy.
It was. It
Yeah.
was so dark. And the part about the child abuse, which
Hmm.
there is abuse in there by a demon. And, I didn't want to watch it. I really didn't watch it, but I had to kind of do it, which, is in my book because of my first husband who was quite ill. And the only way that Bill Blatty was going to help my first husband get the the treatment that he needed down in the Laetrile treatments down in Mexico is to go see his movie first. So
Wow.
my mother and my first husband and I went to see the movie and I was just appalled. And I had read the book too.
Hmm.
But Bill had a lot of paranormal things going on in his life. And he actually, excuse me, he actually experimented with reel to reel tapes and got some electronic voice phenomena, which is EVP. But this was during the 70s, and he took a tape recorder, a reel to reel tape recorder, and he asked, does God exist? And he got an answer back that clearly spoke the word Lacey. The second time he replayed the tape at a higher speed, he heard the words hope it, hope and it. And then he started hearing phrases like, I know what you're thinking. There's no space here. Make them pray, Bill. So whether, he was really hearing things, but people claim that they do when they
Hmm.
record, just silence, that when they replay it, they do hear things like that, spirit voices.
Hmm.
So,
Right. Yeah. Well, we're being bombarded with signals, all kinds of signals, and some of them are spirit based and a lot are manufactured too. And I've talked about that before. The radio signals that people can actually piggyback off of a transmission and create a paranormal event, which is actually simulated. It's actually man made. And that's
mhm,
another avenue altogether. But that can trick a lot of paranormal investigators. But when you're
it
the real
can.
McCoy psychic like yourself, and I'm a real McCoy too, I mean, we understand multidimensional consciousness. We can assimilate these things very easily. We understand the difference between what's really a spirit or
Right.
something that's legit versus a mock communication system, which of course is,
Hmm.
I'm telling you, we're getting
Hmm.
bombarded with that right now. So but I find it fascinating, but
Wow.
I do think people need to watch it and pay attention to where they are at in consciousness, and
Hmm.
and not to nosedive. And I mean, it's so hard to break away from this matrix because of what's happening to us from day to day with the saturation of
Yeah.
all this drama and theater.
Right, right. Absolutely. There's so much going on. What's really interesting is that Bill Blatty mailed the original tape to a friend at Columbia University who ran it through a spectrograph, and the analysis revealed the voice wasn't human. They said
Hmm.
in order to create such an effect, an artificial larynx had to be built and programmed to say those words.
Wow.
So, it just makes you wonder
That's
uh,
fascinating.
about the other side. And
Right.
maybe someday we're going to be able to, it'll be like a phone call to the other side, and it'll be like tuning into a radio, the
Hmm.
frequency. If you pick up lower entities or higher spiritual beings, including angels and spirit guides. So I think there's a lot to it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we are multidimensional beings, and with that comes all types of frequencies. So I do believe
Mhm.
it's a matter of keeping your consciousness at the highest level. But once again, that's a challenge today because we are getting pulled under, and it feels to me like we're getting pulled into this like a magnetic warp, if I could
Mhm.
describe it energetically speaking.
Right.
I did want to talk a little bit about your book, and if you can kind of create some highlights for us and tell us how you got involved in writing it, period.
Well, I'll go back about a year ago. My sister passed away in 2003 in Argentina, and right after her death, she came through and she did a couple of things that confirmed that she was there. But it was last year, July 9th, that I had this vivid dream. And I believe that when we dream about our departed loved ones so vividly that they really are there, that we're communicating with them in the dream time. And in the dream, she kept saying to me, "It's your birthday." And I kept arguing with her, saying, "No, it's not my birthday." And she's saying, "I'm having a surprise birthday for you." And I said, "No, Kathy, it's not my birthday." But I woke up remembering that.
Hmm.
And so A few hours later, I got a call from my daughter saying that my granddaughter had a baby boy who was due 4 weeks later, that he came that early. He wasn't expected. So it was her way of saying that, she knew he was coming and she wanted me to know about the birth of my great grandchild. So I thought that was pretty special. But
Hmm.
she started coming through around November, about Thanksgiving. And my husband can attest to this, all these things. If I was alone, I would think that I was imagining all these things that were happening around our house. But there were so many things. Our stereo radio that we put in our kitchen, it's a small little stereo radio, and we'd always turn on the cool oldies in the morning, the 60s and 70s radio station, and it would turn off by itself, usually about 10 minutes to 7, sometimes 10 minutes after, but usually around 7, sometimes 9:30, different times. But it was usually in the morning, and it would be songs that I related to Kathy, like Kathy's Clown by the Everly Brothers. The first time it happened, that song was playing, and I used to tease my sister about that song. So I just felt her presence. So it's hard to explain how you know that. I just
Oh
have
yeah.
that knowing, right?
There's a difference too. It's a soul to soul communication, I think,
Hmm.
is what it is in frequency. Yeah.
Right,
I think that's wonderful that she communicated with you. And yeah, I remember you uploaded a video of actually your stereo
right.
turning on. That was wild.
Yeah. Well, you could see what looks like a spirit standing there, or
Hmm.
some kind of image
Right.
that goes forward and then walks backward. And what's really strange is that my sister, I always believed my sister was going to die young. And I don't know how I knew that, but I remember when we were very young, and one day I had this clear premonition that she was going to pass away, and if I made her walk backwards for a day, that she would be okay and that
Hmm.
she would live a long life. And she did. She thought I was nuts, but she did it anyway. But it's really strange that, she did pass away at age 50, which I think is young.
Hmm. Yeah.
And she has come through so many times. And I captured her on this video, I believe. And I also had other things that were happening. My cat freaked. Now, animals, especially cats, see spirits.
Hmm.
And one night he was in the hallway where Kathy's photo is, and he was hissing and his hair was on end. And I'm going, what the world is he doing? And he was looking right up at the photo. And I said, it's okay, Comet. It's okay. It's only Kathy. And he settled right down, like he understood what I was saying.
Hmm.
And that happened. Then we had some kitchen utensils that actually floated up and then went into the sink by themselves.
My goodness.
I know.
That's like totally magnetized.
Yeah. And my husband's computer turned off by itself. Then this is really a funny story, because one morning it was a Sunday morning, we were watching CBS Sunday morning show, and they were talking about happy faces and how people always put them on their emails. And we like that story. It was a great little story. And my husband and I were talking about it over breakfast, and how his clients do it all the time. So that morning, my husband's in his office, I'm in my office, and I hear him let out a yelp, and he comes into my office, and he has his coaster, his glass coaster in his hand, and he shows me it, and there on it is the perfect happy face. And I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. It was like Kathy was just confirming she was listening to everything that we were saying. So, I've had validations like that all my life from
Hmm.
family members and just spirit guides, warnings. I believe my life has been saved. I don't know how many times. I'm sure they're tired of trying to save my life. I've used up my 9 lives,
Wow.
Laris.
So
I
can you
don't
give
know.
us a few examples of how they warned you?
Well, sure. I'll Um, Well, I'll tell you how I believe they've saved my life, and then I'll go into some of the warnings I've had, the premonitions that I've had. The first incident was a jawbreaker. I was on my bike. I was probably about 7 years old, and I was riding my bike, and I had bought some penny candy. And believe it or not, there really was penny candy at
You
one time.
remember. Okay, I feel old now, but yes, I remember.
And there were, I don't know if they still sell them, but it wasn't gum. It was actually a hard jawbreaker, and I stuck that in my mouth, and I was riding, pedaling, and I swallowed it.
Oh,
It got stuck in my throat. I was choking to death, and there was no one around to help me. Suddenly, I feel this hand slap me on the back, and I just, you know, out went the jawbreaker on the ground, and I looked around. There was no one there. I was just shocked. That was one incident. And another time, I was probably about 10 years old, and we had had a big snowfall in southern Idaho, and there was all the snow that had been pushed up on the side of the road by a plow. And so I had this brilliant idea that I was going to make a snow cave. So I went out there, and no one knew where I was. I didn't tell my mother where I was going or what I was doing. And I just started digging this snow cave, and I crawled into it. It was probably, there was probably about 2 or 3 feet of snow on top, heavy, wet snow. And I was inside, the whole thing caved in.
yeah.
So I couldn't breathe. And again, I was praying, I was praying so hard, please help me, somebody. And suddenly I felt my whole body being lifted up from this snow cave that was so heavy and I couldn't get out of. I couldn't move anything. I guess it's kind of like being trapped in an avalanche, but I couldn't move. And something lifted me up, and there was no one there. So, I've had just so many things happen. Another incident happened in the late 70s. I was on a single engine plane with a couple of people. We were going from Portland to Wenatchee, and the weather was bad. I think it was like January, February, and they were telling people, don't fly. But I decided to go with these people, and having a bad feeling about it. And we were flying, and of course, everything started icing up. Now, that's not a good thing, even with big commercial planes. When you start getting all this icing, it's a bad, bad thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept looking at the pilot. I was sitting next to him, and the other two people were in the back, and he was perspiring. He was trying to make a joke of it. And I just kept praying to my guardian angels, spirit guides, please get us there. And somehow we got there. And when we landed in Wenatchee, Washington, there was like 2 feet of snow on the runway, and we landed fine. So, I feel that, we were saved. I think Billy, what was it? There's been so many people that have crashed in single engine planes that, it's pretty amazing. But there's been more and more things, asthma attacks, and just so many things. Somebody wants me around for a while.
Yeah, you have plenty of
Solaris.
guardian angels. That's great. I believe in that. I totally believe in miracles and guardian angels, and whatever you want to call them, spirit guides, protectors, in the light and of the light. There's no doubt about it. And where there is light, there's usually an opposing force. Is what I've actually come to realize, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's a really big thing to be aware of that. And most people on this planet, I don't think, tune in too much, and they kind of take for granted those moments that save us, protect us, shield us from these things that are trying to take us down.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I think a lot of that has to do with meditation or prayer, whatever you want to call it, but something that moves you to the next level of your spirituality, to a point where you're in communication with these beings, where you can, deflect some of the negatives. And maybe that's part of what we were talking about earlier, is maybe just going to the next level and to the highest level to start negating this evil on this world.
There are many people that believe that we are creating this holographic world of ours, that it's the grand illusion Maya, and everything that's happening right now we've created in mass. You know, um, Even though we're being programmed with all the negative, are we actually creating this? Are
Mm-hmm.
we creating the premonitions and the predictions, the prophecies that we've heard over the years? Has it come to that? There's over 7 billion people on the planet, and just think of all that energy that we're putting out into the atmosphere.
Right.
That's it's
Mm-hmm.
just incredible. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a major thought, because I believe that there's so many realities out there, and things that we just don't even understand. Even the aliens that we talk about, that they can manipulate time and space, and I just believe that time is not real as
Mm-hmm.
we know it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
state of consciousness. That's the
it.
bottom line. We've been
Mhm.
taught the wrong things. That's the whole problem. That's the biggest beef I have with this planet. And of course, I write about it in one of my books. But literally, I mean, we've been deceived since birth. And of course, if you're taught the wrong information your entire life, when will you recognize the truth when it shows up? You know what I mean? So it's very unfortunate that's going on. But I agree with you about the holographic imagery, and I think that we are manifesting as we go. And people are using the
Mhm.
templates of religion and belief systems to push an agenda, so to speak. And of course, then you have the mass mind control and hypnosis associated. So you've got a lot
Mhm.
of things to deal with right now. But those of us
Mhm.
who are navigating to the biggest level and the higher levels, I think we can pierce through those veils and ride it out. But at the same time, to me, it's like you have to ask yourself, when does it stop and shift for a better dynamic? Because right now it seems like we're going through a very, what I'd call a Kali rift, a very very, very dark tide.
I think the one thing, like I was talking about earlier, about our vibrations being lowered, and right now, I think that look at most of us. We're not in great health. I'm not saying that. There are people out there that are in good health, but so many people are overweight. They're eating the wrong foods, and that's lowering their vibrational rate.
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting all that into Mother Earth, what we're doing. So when we don't honor ourselves, we're not honoring everything else around us. And, it's toxic food, the media, TV, it's all negative. We're stuck to our cell phones and texting, and we're just involved in this technology world where nothing else exists. And we've got to get back to Mother Earth,
Mm-hmm.
to the religion of Gaia, and the goddess, the Mother Earth, because that's who sustains us. That's what keeps us going. Mother Earth, if she dies, we're not going to be here.
Right.
You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I always got
yeah.
the impression that mankind was going extinct on one level or another, and whether it's
Hmm.
emerged with transhumanism, which is a possibility coming down the pike, if you look at everything that's going on. But do you see this planet right now going through a death cycle?
I feel that it's going to go through a huge transformation. I
Mm-hmm.
feel that it has to cleanse itself again, because we've polluted the earth. And when I say we, I mean, all of us together have contributed to what's going on. And there are other forces too. We've got nuclear plants, Fukushima, what's happening. People have no regard to, these corporations, these companies that drilling, the fracking, the polluted waters. I never dreamed these things would happen. I knew
Mm-hmm.
something big was going to happen in my lifetime, but I never knew that I would see the lakes and the rivers that I grew up with being so polluted, animals dying from the pollution, becoming extinct. Some of them, I know that's a natural evolution of animals anyway, but we're speeding everything up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been expedited
Yeah,
big time. Yeah, there's no
sure.
doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. I also see that it looks like the masses have lost that ancient language or that connection to their star
Hmm.
ancestry, which
Hmm.
is huge because if you're not bringing in that multidimensional consciousness, then what's the point in being on this planet? Literally, if you're just going to be here as a drone or a clone or a programmed unit and you don't have any source connection, then there's really no point. And yet I see a lot of people very, very lost. But I think it's the teachings. Once again, they haven't been taught the language and they don't recall it at the cellular level for whatever reason. Now, it could be due to frequency, which I sense it is, because we were talking about frequency and how that shuts off the DNA. It switches everything off. So if they're
Hmm.
manipulating, frequency, which I know they're doing a lot of frequency fence-oriented transmissions, then that could actually create some disturbance, and maybe a lot of people can't navigate beyond that. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right.
Hmm.
I feel that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so we're becoming spiritual couch potatoes. And, from the fear, it used to be that we could travel wherever we wanted to, getting on planes. We could have our family meet us right after we got off the planes. Now we're being segregated, conquer and divide
Right.
type mentality. And that's
Yeah.
what's going on. We're in such a fear mode with the Ebola, with all these viruses we're hearing about, with the wars that are going on. It's fear, 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 terrorists everywhere, under our
Hmm.
beds, everywhere. And, all that energy, like I said, is going somewhere. And part of these earth changes could be from us too,
Yeah.
with all that negativity we're pouring into the planet.
Hmm.
It's a combination. I don't think it's just one thing. I
I
think it's
agree.
many things that are affecting our planet right now.
Yeah, once again, it's that psychic drain too, because everybody's attention, for every moment you're being pulled away by television and the drama, you could be doing something on a higher level of your own design that would actually raise your vibration and
Hmm.
create a healthier lifestyle. But what I have noticed is that even if you're creating a healthy lifestyle, it's encroaching. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse to a point where it's almost in your face. It's like somebody at the edge of your driveway, and then all of a sudden they're up there, at your door. So it's that kind of an energy, and it's that kind of an intrusion that I'm seeing. But I do think I think you're right. I think the planet's going through a huge transition right now, and it's way off
Hmm.
balance. And not
Hmm.
only is the planet off balance, but people are off balance. They're not,
Right.
there's a disconnect. And I don't care what they're doing. If they're doing all these horrific events in the name of a god, there's something wrong with that. There's something way
Right.
wrong with that. It's crazy. So how do you
Right.
rationalize with people who have lost it? You can't. It's
You
bottom line.
can't. You can't. And people that are flipping out because the energy, the vibrational rate of everything is changing. And a lot of these people are flipping out. And there could be, like you said, mind control. And I believe that. HARP. And, these people that are already into drugs and other things that could lower their vibration and they can be controlled.
Hmm.
And, I don't think it's the end of all these shooting. Of course, they want some of these young people just want the publicity, they don't care if they die. It's just weird thinking. And when I was growing up, I didn't see any of these things when I was
Mm-mm.
growing up.
No, we were
Um,
innocent.
no,
I
no.
mean,
The only bad thing is beer parties,
it's nothing compared to what
there
goes on
was no
today.
drugs. There was
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree. It was I must say we were blessed, and I've said that before on my show. We really were blessed
Hmm.
to grow up when we
Hmm.
did because we didn't have this type of saturation. I feel sorry for
Hmm.
these kids growing up in this environment. And what kind of world are we really, really showing them? I mean, honestly, it's becoming more and more oppressive, if you ask me. So I do think it needs to change. And if people don't notice the oppression, then maybe they're just not looking at it through a different lens. But it certainly is here and now. I hope it's not lasting.
What do you think about the new children? I think they're being attacked right now,
Hmm.
spiritually attacked, because, you see all these children getting sick. They're, with this enterovirus, they're calling it, what is it, D68, that is attacking children. They don't know where it came from. Suddenly it's, in every state, and how it did that within a few days, I can't even imagine.
Right, and I don't know if it has a connection
Yeah.
to the illegals that crossed over. I know we had a large
Hmm.
merge of illegals
Mm.
going over here, and then of course they put them in other areas and cities. Now I haven't tracked that down to see if there's a correlation or not, but it might
Right.
be. I don't know. I mean, if nobody's getting vaccinated over there and they're coming over here with all sorts of illnesses, then yeah, it's going to spread. And if you have a weak immune
Mhm.
system, I can imagine that would help,
Right.
beat it. But at the same
Right.
time, I think there's a lot of bio warfare going on right now, and
Hmm.
genetic warfare and cyber terrorism to other things that are going on. I mean, people don't pay attention to it, but it's there. It's been hitting us.
Hmm. And geoengineering with our planet. So they're controlling our weather. They're controlling, just about everything. I wouldn't even be surprised if they're not creating some of these earthquakes that are going on too. I
Yep. Yeah, and you've been tracking those. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the earthquake. So what's your impression? Do you think? Now, I've heard from other people that I've interviewed that they think the whole area west of the Rockies is going to go soon. What do you think?
well, I think there is this pulling and pulling with the tectonic plates. And I think there are certain areas that are pulling apart. And certainly our Earth has had a violent past. We think things have been pretty quiet lately, and they have. But when you go back several thousand years, we had volcanoes all over the world erupting. We had, even here in Idaho, there's an area called that's full of lava, and it's just amazing, the huge flows that were only about 1,000 years ago. And it's so incredible to think that our Earth is quiet now, and it's not going to misbehave, because it is. And I just think these things are going to increase. I've felt that the earthquakes are going to increase. The volcanoes are already increasing. We've had some huge earthquakes, which are really strange, and some very strange earthquakes going on in Oklahoma. There's been hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes since the beginning of the year, and I think there's some kind of major pulling. And I've noticed that when there's a lot of swarm earthquakes, cluster earthquakes around Oklahoma, it seems to activate volcanoes. There's a big earthquake somewhere in the world, and there's been earthquakes. There was just one in Trinidad, Colorado, which is near the New Mexico border, yesterday, 3.1, which is really strange. I don't know why there would be anything there. There's no major mountains or anything there, so that's really strange.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of the fracking, though. I'm wondering if the fracking isn't inducing a lot of this, especially in Oklahoma.
But I wonder why, like in Arizona, there's been a bunch of them, in New Mexico. So I wonder how that would be explained.
Yeah, it's almost like a chain reaction. The only way I can look at it, and this is a theory, but it's almost like when you're looking at the pressure points of the world and the Earth and, and the grid of the planet, then one point, say if you're fracking in one area, it's gonna point that energy, or actually move that energy to another location on the map, like you do with acupuncture and acupressure on a physical person. I mean, that's my own interpolation of it, but it could be a possibility. I mean, there's always a chain reaction of events. Whatever we do, there's cause and effect. And I think fracking, honestly, I think that's really bad news, personally. I just think it's caused some problems. I know it has in Oklahoma. Now, have you done any looking at or research on the Planet X?
I have. And, I've always felt that there is a brown dwarf, also known as a failed star, that's out there, because every solar system out there has binary stars, two suns, and we only have one sun, which is very strange. So it makes sense that somehow it got outside of orbit, and it comes in every 3,600 years. And depending on how close it is to our planet, it causes all kinds of major, Earth changes. So, that makes sense to me that there's something out there, because all our planets in our solar system have been behaving very strangely in the last few years. There are just some strange things going on, plus what's going on with our Earth. And I know that there's been many people, authors and people that have investigated somewhat, on Planet X, and they think that it's out there and it's causing these problems, and that's why we keep hearing about our government building these underground bunkers everywhere, supposely under Denver Airport. And I know you're not too far from there.
I'm in the heart of the beast, I swear. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Have you ever gone out there to investigate it?
I haven't, but I've flown in and out of there so many times, and I never really picked up on much. I mean, I just get in and out and do my thing, but there's definitely an ominous presence here. They do a lot of test runs here on a covert level with communication systems and transmissions and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a weird place. It can be, without a doubt.
Did you ever see that mural that was up there, that scary mural? And then there was a gargoyle up there. And
well, the gargoyle doesn't bother me because those are protectors. I mean, I have gargoyles in my house. I have one that's his name is Silas. He's upstairs. But literally, they don't bother me. It's the other things that I looked at, though. The guy with the gas mask, there's a picture and the children in the grave. Now, that's pretty I don't know about you, but it's like prophetic almost because of what's happening here with the Ebola and the illusion of whether it's a false flag or not. You have things that are going on right now in this country and outside the country that kind of are reflecting that imagery, with the
Hmm.
grave, and then there's a woman that
Right.
looks like she's from Africa in the grave, and then there's a little girl and looks like she's from America. I mean, there's things that are happening there that obviously are showing us something that's foreboding. And that's what
Right.
I'm looking at. I'm not looking at it with paranoia, but I'm certainly seeing a pattern here. And
Yeah.
obviously the patterns right now, it's in motion in the U.S., whether people like it or not. I mean, it's here. So
Hmm.
that's what I picked up on anyways. But
Right. And
yeah.
it's so eerie. I heard they took that down finally,
Oh, did
but
they?
there is that sculpture of that big horse with the glowing red eyes
Oh,
that is
yeah.
still, yeah, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We have
And
some
you,
weird stuff here. It's like the Addams family. I mean, you have
I,
to take it to the highest level. I try not to get myself all, weirded out on it, because I am into the paranormal and I am a mystical scientist and I have a background in the craft. So I look at things at
Mhm.
the highest level of spirituality, but I'm very atypical. I'm very alchemical in consciousness, so I'm a little bit different. But
Did
yeah,
you hear what happened to the sculptor that did that?
no. Oh, the man
He,
that died, yeah?
yeah, he died. I guess he bled to death. Something fell off and hit him and he bled to death. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
pretty
pretty
weird.
weird, isn't it?
You know, it
Yeah.
reminds me of Ghostbusters when they let those, all these kinds of entities out and they just kind of create a lot of problems for people. That's what I'm looking at. I think there are a lot of disembodied entities right now. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I think so
Getting
too.
back to the spirit world, but seriously, I really think that's what's happening here. And a lot of people may be haunted, and I'm almost thinking maybe this planet is going to become haunted to some degree because of the things mankind has done to it. So that's like a graveyard, like one big graveyard and cemetery. I don't want to see the Earth become that, but we were talking about Planet X a little bit, and my theory is that it's a lot of people say Planet X is already here, and the only way it could be here, in my opinion, is if it were cloaked on another frequency in a dimension parallel to this one.
Sure.
Now, I don't know
Sure.
in a connection. I mean that's just my own take on it anyway, but I'd like to know what you think about that.
I I've had this really weird thought, and it's just, I think about all these weird things, but with our temperatures rising and all these earth changes, all these UFOs, are we having some kind of maybe landing or takeover for aliens that need a different kind of atmosphere, a different, maybe I've watched too many Twilight Zones or, other movies about aliens. But, I wonder, is there something that's changing, and we're seeing these UFOs, orbs, these orange, these white orbs. Everybody is seeing them all over the country. I know you had some in Colorado not too long ago, Utah just recently, Idaho's had them. So there's something major going on out there.
Hmm.
And are we going to have some kind of major landing, disclosure? I don't think our military or government was ever going to disclose anything to us, but if something like that happens, they're going to have to tell us something.
Right. And I'm also
Mm,
wondering if that has a connection or correlation to volcanoes, because have you noticed that there are these orbs that show up around the volcanoes when they're going off?
right, right.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if there's something that's connected in with maybe the Earth grid itself, and that maybe people are seeing the sightings that maybe it's not even UFO. I mean, I don't know. It could be something else that's happening, but I
Hmm.
do think we're in for a big ride. Like I said, get your surfboards out because it's going to be one hell of
Right.
a ride.
Buckle up.
I
Well,
know.
you're right about that. It could be earthquake lights, what they talk about, but some of these areas that they're seeing them have had no earthquakes.
Hmm.
So, but there are earthquake lights from the piezo electric. It's the
Right.
grinding of the rocks down below and the crystal and everything, and then it produces an electrical charge. If you've ever taken two crystals, and be sure and wear glasses if you do it, and turn out the lights and just strike them together, you can see this charge in there. It's just
Hmm.
incredible. I used to
Right.
do that as a child. But yeah,
Well,
I get
it's
under the
yeah.
covers and strike those two crystals together.
Nice. I was a rock
Yeah.
collector too as a kid.
Were
I
you?
was, oh man, I'd go after any rock I saw. Yeah, I still do. Yeah, big time. I love quartz in general. Well, they say we have a crystalline structure within us, and I know a lot of people never address
Sure.
this, but we are crystalline. I mean, we are the supercomputer design, and we don't need a real manufactured computer because we are the computer, and that's why interface with artificial intelligence works so well because we're already wired for that. They never tell you that
Right.
though.
Right.
Yeah, we
Right.
already have all the skills and abilities. And of course, America, not America in general, but the whole planet's been dumbed down to such an extent they haven't been taught what they're capable of. That's unfortunate.
How true. How
Yeah.
true.
And then,
You know,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that we are so oblivious to what's really going on in our world, with everything around us. We're so caught up in the material world that we don't understand that there is another world that coexists with our own, that
Hmm.
we don't see, that's invisible to us most of the time. But sometimes things slip through. I think sometimes there is a parallel Earth,
Hmm.
and sometimes that slips through, and we have these feelings of deja vu, just all these feelings, or we felt that it's happened before, which is deja vu. But people that have suddenly walked down a street and they're transported into another time and place,
Hmm.
and it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's happened to me when I was younger too. I would actually be able to access other portals because I would just, if the vibration was different, I could actually vibrate and resonate with it and start shifting the illusion of the timeline. And that's real interesting. But that anybody can do that, and I find that very fascinating, especially if you go to ancient sites, places that are very
Hmm.
historic, and I'm sure you've been there, where you can actually go in and you start vibrating at that frequency, and all of a sudden things start to shift around you, and you can actually tap in. And once again,
Right.
there's no such thing as time because you're dealing with consciousness and fractals of consciousness and imprinting and things like that. To me, it's very scientific. It's very interesting and cool too.
Well, I think scientists, they've been experimenting with time travel, and there was the double slit uh, experiment they did where they took, this was during the 1980s. Scientists discovered that using the double slit experiment, where electrons and protons are fired through two slit openings on a screen, produced some very weird results
Hmm.
in quantum mechanics. Instead of the photons making two patterns on the screen when they were fired, they ended up with three smudge patterns. So scientists were left scratching their heads with this wave-like interference. So what's going on there? Why would that produce three slits instead of the two? So
Right.
yeah, there's just so much going on, and I'm sure time travel exists. I am so convinced it can,
Oh yeah, I
it's
mean you can do it yourself. I mean it's literally about consciousness and motion. I mean because
right.
you have to take time as a benchmark of measure, and of course people are taught that time is real. It really isn't. And once you navigate to the level of consciousness and you start navigating through other levels and dynamics of this information, what do you want to call it,
Hmm.
archives of information, you can go anywhere. I'm a firm believer in that, and I've been able to do it. But I will say that there is a frequency fence, and there are, I don't even call them, whatever they are, they try to stop you from accessing. Let's put it that way. And I don't think they're archons at all. I think they're created by our underground. I have
Yeah,
noticed that. So
right,
yeah, so they
right.
don't want you progressing to highest levels. I mean, if everybody could bilocate off world and knew they could do that, well, what do you think would happen to the control manipulation factor? It would be out the
Mhm.
window. They don't want anybody accessing those gateways because once you start navigating, you're like, I'm out of here. I am. I mean, as soon as I find my portal, I'm gone. I'm sorry.
Right.
My dog and my cat are coming with me, and I'm like Doctor Who. I'm out of here. So
I was just thinking, have you ever read any book by Chet Snow?
no,
Is
but
that
you've mentioned him before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was rereading that book. I think it was written with Dr. Helen Wambach in 1980s, early 80s, and they regressed a large group of people. They actually took them into the future and they asked them what they saw. And most of the participants saw something happening between now and the year, I think it was like um, oh gosh, in the next 100 years, something major was going to happen. And there were a few people left on the planet. But they said that when they did, come back, when they incarnated back, that it was a different world. It was a beautiful world. Things had changed. So they did see a beautiful world coming.
Hmm.
And I was kind of, I think that's kind of interesting that
Hmm.
so many people would feel that. And that was during the 80s.
Wow.
You would think that people now would certainly say that there's something going to happen, but back
Right.
then there wasn't that mentality of disaster and
No, we
doom.
were resonating with very high light waves of energy
Yeah,
because we were
right.
receiving more and more downloads of what I call ascension energies. And of course, I know you know about ascension, and I was teaching DNA
Hmm.
activation and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was well aware that this planet was ascending into a star, and that's what the whole ascension process is for this planet. It morphs into a star in the end of ends, in the illusion of. So literally, it becomes like the sun, like like a second sun. And that's what they're saying at the core level of this Earth when it morphs and it finally does its thing and it transitions out into the false matrix created by man, which is density, and then it goes to the highest level, which is all about frequency. Once you start changing the dynamic of the spin of this planet through frequency, it will change. It won't even look like Earth anymore, and neither will we.
No,
We won't look
no,
like people. So
no.
that's the whole concept, and I know you understand that, and that once again ties in and correlates with spirits because they're going to the next level. When they transfer out, their state of consciousness shifts on, they change their form, but they also need to have the awareness to know that they can actually change and shapeshift, and I don't know if they're capable of understanding that because once again, I think it has to do with being here, learning and understanding consciousness, and then being able to navigate when you transfer out. What do you think?
I think so. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it seems
I
like
think
to
you're
me.
so right on. You are. You're just on the
Well, you and
right
I always
track
have,
here.
we understand each other. We speak the
We
same
do.
language for sure. And
We
have you ever
do.
had to assist a spirit in moving on?
I haven't. I would like to try that. I might be able to do that soon. I might have that experience going to a haunted place. So I'll see about that.
Interesting. So, which haunted place are you going to?
To That will be down in Durango, a haunted hotel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So, you're going to be
yeah,
in Colorado? Oh
yeah.
my gosh. I have to
I
get down there. I have
know.
to come visit you.
I
How
know.
cool is that? I don't,
I
which
know.
hotel is that? You should come up to the Stanley. Is it the Stanley? The one up in Estes Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's
Yeah.
haunted.
Oh,
There's no doubt
really?
about it. I've been
That's
there.
near
Yeah.
you up there.
Well, it's in Estes Park, but yeah, there's definitely there's some lingering spirits hanging out over there. But they're
Yeah.
everywhere. I mean, they're wherever you have old mines. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm sure
Hmm.
you are. Where there's been mining and people have lost their lives through mining, we get that too up here because it used to be old mining town. So you get the spirits. I had a girlfriend who had a house, and her husband used to hear old like saloon music all the time in their house.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
unbelievable. And stuff would happen that's very paranormal, but it was an old, I guess it was like a saloon at one time. And, it's very fascinating, really, when you look at the
Hmm.
historical things that go on. And then once again, it's about vibration and tuning in. If people are multidimensional and they're switched on, then they can tune into that frequency that's
Right.
creating that.
Right. I don't see spirit anymore. After my grandfather passed away when I was 8 years old, I haven't seen any physical spirits,
Mhm.
but I hear them.
Right. And you sounds like you're more empathic too. You actually feel like with earth changes, you're actually
I
picking up
do.
on those. So how does that feel to your body?
Well, sometimes with earthquakes, if it's fairly close, I feel kind of the nausea coming on. I feel the vertigo. I feel really dizzy.
Hmm.
And so I know something's going to happen. Sometimes I dream of them. I've had dreams of earthquakes. And like in 1971, when I lived in Los Angeles for 3 nights in a row, I had dream of a big earthquake, and in each dream I was okay, and so was my family. So the morning it happened, I didn't have the dream, but I was up early. I worked for a brokerage firm at the time, and it hit at 6 o'clock exactly, and that apartment building I was in was swaying back and forth. I was trying to open the door to get out. I couldn't even open the door. I thought, oh, this whole thing is going to collapse, but I should have trusted, spirit was telling me I was going to be okay.
Hmm. Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it
That's
was,
important.
yeah.
You're going to be protected. When you receive the vertigo, were you standing up?
Oh, when I get that feeling of
Hmm.
vertigo, no, sometimes sitting down, I feel really dizzy.
Wow. So what do you
So,
do to ground that?
I just go with it
You do. Okay. Do
because
you
I
breathe
feel
or?
that it's something that I'm being told, some impression, psychic impression that's coming through. So
Right.
I just let it come through.
That makes sense.
And a lot of times, I just, ask Mother Earth what's going on. I go out and I talk to her. And I think that's so important because,
Hmm.
like I said, everything has a consciousness. And
Right.
even the indigenous people have always, they've recognized their four directions, the elements all have a consciousness. And in their ceremonies and their sweat lodges, they honor the four directions, they honor Earth. And that's something, I feel. So I go out there and I touch Mother Earth, and I you know, give something back.
Hmm.
It could be a stone that I put out there. Sometimes I get some cornmeal to, give a blessing to the earth. So it's I just feel that that incredible energy from Mother Earth.
Right.
And
And gratitude is very important. I think that's
yeah, it
huge.
is.
And Betsy, we're going to head for a break real quick. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back on Dark Matter Radio Network. Welcome back, everybody, to Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my very special guest, Betsey Lewis. And Betsy, you with me?
Yes, I'm here.
Yay! It's so wonderful to
Yay.
have you on tonight, and thank you
Thank
again.
you.
And if everybody wants to grab a copy of your book, how do they do that?
They can go to my website or they can go on Amazon, Communicating with the Other Side, True Experiences of a Psychic Medium, and go to my website. Under books, and my website is Betsy's a little bit different. Betsey is spelled Betsey, and Lewis is Lewis.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's very important that people take a good look at your book and read it because it really calibrates them to the next level and also in understanding the spirit world a little bit better, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. That's what I wanted to help so many people understand that, death isn't the end. It's just part of the cycle. You can't destroy energy and love continues on forever. We're infinite. We'll go on forever. We have lessons to learn here. It's like a big theater. When we are born here, we have lessons to learn about love, compassion, forgiveness, and that's what we do when we're here. So there's great lessons to learn here. And it's also learning about the dark side too, because our world is a duality world, of light, darkness, positive, negative poles. And that's meant to be. So if we didn't have the dark side, how would we learn? If we didn't have the negative in our life, how would we grow? How would we learn? So that's all important for our evolution, our spiritual evolution, I believe. What do you think?
Well, it certainly wakes people up because it's through that evil that they look at it and say something's wrong with this. Obviously, people who have morals and a good benchmark, of a higher multidimensional compass don't associate with evil very well. And so they look at it and it wakes them up to the highest level. And oh, my cat just knocked something down and broke it. Oh, that's
no.
okay. Whatever it was, it's fine. In the illusion of, I'll deal with it later. I can only imagine what it was. Okay. Anyways, yeah, that's what
spirits there.
Yeah, he's a trip, my cat. He's an interesting little critter. Of course, his name is Salem, so go figure with that one, right? But yeah, no, I agree with you on that one, though. I do think it is a mirror and it's a reflection, but at the same time, I think this world has been so saturated with it. It's time for some positive energy, and it's time for people to resonate at a higher frequency. Because I don't know about you, but I get tired of this battlefield. To me, the psychic warfare and the negativity is just too much. I'd rather spend my life happy than miserable, being pulled into these false realities.
I believe that there are other realities, other planets where there are, it's peaceful and wonderful and there's no wars and people honor each other. And there are such places out there. And certainly if you want to go to those places, you are still, you're welcome to do that if that's what you want to do. But so many people want to come back to Earth because we have free will here. That's the interesting thing. We can do and make anything we want happen. It's kind of like the other side.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on the other side, you are pure energy. So what you believe in and what you think, you create instantly.
Mm-hmm.
But here on this planet, even though we don't create things as quickly, we still do. It may take a little bit longer, but we do create our reality and we do have free will. So if you believe that you can accomplish certain things in life, then you won't.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think positive and you believe that you can do certain things in life, whatever you have your goals set on, you can do it.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing you can do that, you weren't born with a destiny. You had a roadmap when you came into this life, what you wanted to do and what you wanted to accomplish. You chose your parents. You have probably reincarnated with them thousands of times. Your family, your children, your aunts, uncles, these are all people you've known in past lives, and you've chosen to come back, and you have probably played out different scenarios each time, maybe come back as a man, a woman. Your father may have been your brother in a lifetime, so it's all kind of mixed up, but we do come back, and we keep learning, we keep growing. Hopefully, not every lifetime is a learning experience. Sometimes we have little setbacks, but that's okay too. We
Mm-hmm.
all learn at different stages.
It's interesting. I agree with you on many different levels there. And I also get the impression now, especially that the cycle of reincarnation has been broken, which means we don't have to incarnate back on this earth. Now, that's just my own impression of things that are going on in the timeline. But what's interesting is I do think that there's, to me, I believe that free will is actually being violated right now on Earth, even though we are yes, by universal law, we have free will. That's a universal given. But at the same time, for some reason or another, we're being encroached upon, and things are starting to change. So that dynamic is creating a polarization. That's what I'm looking at with the energetic. So to me, it's kind of like I think people have graduated. I think there are a lot of beings here who have graduated beyond what's happening here in this false matrix. And to those of us who have graduated, I don't think we'll have to come back in any form unless we want to. And I don't know about you, but I'm planning on getting out of this. I'm going to another universe.
Well, I'm thinking that too.
I'm done. I graduated. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's it. I've seen it all, been there, done that, got the T-shirt and the hat, But it is an experience, and I agree that love is very important. Without love, there isn't a whole lot going on, is there?
No, there isn't.
Yeah, even just compassion for animals and your fellow man.
Hmm. Exactly. And maybe we've allowed a lot of this darkness. A lot of people aren't elevated. They're not spiritual enough. They don't have that awakening of what's really happening.
Right.
So they are allowing all these things, and they sit
Hmm.
back and they think they can't do anything, and you can do something. You don't have to run out and grab a gun and, think that you're going to take care of evil by that. That's not the way to do it, because evil begets evil
It polarizes,
and
yeah.
and violence. So, it has to be done with, I believe, and it sounds like such a cliche, but love is the answer. It really is. And that's such an amazing positive energy. It's the light. When you bring in the light and the love, you are creating a new world. You are, instead of buying into all this stuff, just turn off the TV.
Yeah, switch it off
Just
and raise your energy field
right.
vibration, yeah.
Right.
No, I
Just get
agree.
away from it. You know, just think about, hundreds of years ago, we didn't have that kind of news to pollute our earth.
It's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. And now we just depend on it. We sit there and we just listen to all these horrible things. And guess what? You're doing, you're feeling that horrible emotion. If somebody was killed, if a large amount of people were killed in the Mideast, we hear about, we're feeling these energy.
Yeah, it's a
And like I
psychic
said,
drain. Yeah.
we're just pouring it into the planet. We're
Mhm.
harming the
People,
planet and
I
everything
agree.
around us.
Yeah, people need to learn how to, what I would say is
Hmm.
is deflect psychic energies or psychic attacks. And
Hmm.
also, I mean, I'm not saying people should be wimps in any form or design. I think there's a time and a place to defend yourself if it's a really a life
Right,
threatening situation as a martial
right.
artist. I can tell you that. But literally, yeah, not to bleed into their false reality and matrix because it's so toxic and it's
Hmm.
so it just lowers you into the like Mordor. It's just that's why it reminds me of like Lord of the Rings.
Right,
It's that
right.
same thing where, or even like Harry Potter, where they have the Dementors.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of people are living in their lower astral body.
They are. They are.
Yeah, and that's part of
Right.
they haven't done the spiritual work and they're not rebuilding through light body levels of consciousness. And that a lot of people say that's woo woo stuff, and it's not. It's actually alchemical and it's about consciousness and spiritual evolution.
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard for people to get that. They just don't seem to understand it.
I was thinking about, I watched the movie Patton not too long ago again, and a lot of people don't know that General George Patton remembered past lives. He remembered many lifetimes where he was fighting in Roman times. He was fighting these great battles, and he knew that he was destined to be a leader in World War II, that he had a destiny. And it's interesting that so many people come into this life that remember past lives and they know what their destiny is. And I think that's so wonderful that he
Mm-hmm.
knew who he was and he knew that he'd come back again as, something like that again, and probably fight another war.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
that's pretty incredible.
It is. Well, you bring all those memories with you, I would assume, and
Hmm.
you bring all the information and all the archives of data. Well, it sounds
Hmm.
like if you don't finish what you were set out to do the first time around, you come back to finish it up the second.
Right,
I would think.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
And our
exactly.
ancestors too. And now that's an interesting thing. Now my sister's really big on our ancestry, and we have some hardcore ancestry on my mother's side. And boy, when I found out all the stuff we were involved in, amazing. And I'm thinking, wow. Now I'm wondering if we're bearing that cross on this timeline, energetically speaking, because you never know. And we are our ancestors to some degree, whether they're star beings or just the ones that were here on this timeline, on the world before
Right,
us. So it's
right.
fascinating. It's really fascinating when you look at that.
The Native Americans say that what we do today affects 7 generations. Now, when you think about that,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen that in my own family and how what certain events happened with family members, my grandfather, what he did has affected 3 generations. So, you have to know that that's true. That's
Mm-hmm.
so true.
I agree.
And
Yep.
it's kind of a big responsibility when you think about it. If people really realized what they do today will affect 7 generations, they would probably think twice about some of the things they do, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, I totally agree. And I think part of that's just them not plugging into the higher levels of their own divine consciousness, just not paying attention, doing a check on yourself or shadowing yourself. And that goes for people in the illusion of power, too. I mean, they literally have a lot of responsibility and they certainly have a lot of influence over the masses. Now, if they're being misdirected, then they're going to poison every single thing, in which I'm seeing in motion right now on this timeline. So we've got a lot of problems here that aren't being resolved. And then you look at it once again, you look at that cycle of generation and generation. What are they creating? I mean,
Right,
honestly, it's
right,
almost
right.
creepy to find out when you think about it.
And that's what scares me, about the new children coming in, because there are these beautiful, highly evolved children coming into our planet right now, and they're called the new children, the rainbow children, the crystal children, the rainbow, like I said, rainbow and what is it, indigo children. They were the ones that began this, but they are intuitive. They see spirits. They remember their past lives. They're prodigies in music, math, and art, and so many things. And I just feel like I said before that certain things are bringing down their vibrations right now, and all these children getting sick with these viruses that just suddenly appear out of nowhere.
Hmm.
And there's something going on. You have to know that something's going on that's supernatural, not normal,
Right.
with all these things happening all at the same time. Ebola, I mean, where did it come from? I mean, it's been there, but why this huge outbreak suddenly? And it kind of goes back, you probably heard about all these microbiologists that suddenly died under mysterious circumstances
Hmm.
since the 80s. there's been like at least 100 of them that died, and like suicide. I mean, all these microbiologists committing suicide.
Hmm.
Come on.
Exactly. Anyone who could have
Mhm.
access to creating a cure for something is being taken out. Yeah,
Right.
systematically. I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I don't believe in coincidence. And yeah, there's definitely an agenda going on. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, unfortunately, it's not even conspiracy. It's just a fact. I mean, this is what's going on.
Right.
So we have to kind of. I don't want to accommodate their illusion of reality or their version of reality. To me, it's a false
Hmm.
reality. So literally, what we have to do is rise above that and change the
Hmm.
dynamic. But what
Hmm.
I'm seeing, and after interviewing so many different people, I realize there's so much corruption involved, and corruption is due to lack of connection to source, if you ask me. Once again, you're dealing with lower astral entities or disembodied people that don't have higher consciousness, and then when you're not moving
Hmm.
from higher consciousness, it's a mess. It's chaos in
Right.
motion. There's
Right.
no rationale involved. It's all about ego. So
Right.
you can see where this pattern is going, and literally,
Hmm.
but we can observe it and understand it because we've already done the spiritual work. But we're not the ones calling the shots here on the world. But what we can do is alter the timeline maybe to a higher level of consciousness to make this ride as easy as we can for not only ourselves but also the transition of the world and even the animals. Which I mean, I'm very concerned about the animals and the wildlife right now
Hmm.
because
I am too.
it's a big thing, and maybe people
I
don't
am
pay
too.
attention to that, but literally our oceans are not healthy, and we have a lot of problems that aren't being addressed and are overlooked.
Hmm.
So I mean, we can go on and on about it. I
Right.
know we started talking about ghosts, but it all entangles itself because after a while, when it all is said and done and we transfer out and everybody transfers out, what are they going to be proud of? I mean, what are they going to do for their accomplishments? What are they going to look back on? I mean, you have these people in the
Hmm.
illusion of power. I mean, are they going to be happy with what they've done? And
Right.
honestly, it's going to
Right.
haunt them. And once again, that's an earthbound spirit because what you do to affect the others on this world in a negative fashion is going to trap you. And I don't think they understand the concept of that. I think they just understand maybe low magic or lower astral interaction of entities, but they don't get the bigger scenery.
No, I agree. I agree totally. And it comes right back to conquer and divide. We are so suspicious of people now. We don't trust people. We are afraid of getting a virus or, the Ebola. It's more conquer and divide.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't come together, if we realize that that's what they want us to do that. So we're more in chaos, we're more in fear, then they're going to win. We just have to come together more. I think prayer is so important. Meditation, prayer. I think that is such a positive energy, and if we pray that we're seeing a different earth, we're visualizing a new earth. We're going to create a new world, and we're going to be the spiritual warriors out there. We are going to change this planet and what's going on.
Hmm.
So
Well,
I think,
I agree with you. I think for every evil agenda, there's an opposing force, and that's
mhm,
basically that's the law
right,
of the universe. I mean, whether they like it or not, even if they think they're king of the hill right now, something's going to create a balance and alter that, so that it's like the chessboard. That's constant interaction. So whatever's going on, yeah, it will be balanced. And I think there are a lot of us here who are actually very empowered on a very high level to assist in and kind of anchoring some of this higher energy opposed to some of the stuff that they're doing that's very disturbing.
right,
Yeah, but I think
right.
prayer is important too. I mean, any kind of affirmations, meditations. But what I do notice is that you have to put energy in motion, and that you can't just go hide away and,
Hmm.
and, and be a monk on a mountain. I would love to do that, and I would be off the planet probably if I was meditating 24 hours a day. But the honest, the bottom line is people are working and they have to interact with the illusion of this matrix, and there's a time for that, but there's also time for interaction as well. But also people will get it through osmosis. Now once you alter your frequency, even by
Hmm.
standing next to somebody else, you'll be changing their energy field by your frequency alone, which is nice.
Right.
In a subtle way, not in a manipulative way, but in a place
Hmm.
of love and just natural energy healing.
And you're talking about the animals. They have vibrations and they have toning, like the birds and the whales, and they make sounds of the bees, the crickets, the frogs. Those are toning, and they are raising the vibration of the earth. And when all these things start dying, we don't have them. They're holding our planet in place. And even the Aboriginals in Australia have a legend that they came from another planet, and because our planet was out of balance at the time, they helped it get back into balance, but they said because of what we're doing, taking all the minerals out of the planet, we're taking the oil, the uranium, that everything is out of balance. The energy grid is out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes total sense what we're doing. We're just depleting everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have to honor the, excuse me, animals,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to get back to that again.
No, I totally agree with you. Well, what they've done is they've created almost like a simulation of a grid around the world. It's becoming a very transhumanistic version of what we call a planet, in my opinion. I mean, they're really going full speed ahead with a lot of that. A lot of that's in the black underground. I mean, a lot of people won't notice it, but I certainly do. I mean, I noticed it, and I understand the frequencies involved. So they're taking
Mhm.
things that are natural, even beings like us, our souls, our essence, our spiritual design, and they're trying to transform it and triangulate it into something that's more manufactured and more of the
Mhm.
transhumanism. And of course, they've been working on that for a very long time. But we're natural supercomputers, so like I said before, it's easy to adapt onto those types of things. But you have to ask yourself: do you want to be able to think for yourself? Do you want people to force you into a prayer or a
Right,
meditation that you're not in
right.
resonance with? Do you want people to totally be creating you to a point where you're taken over as a robot and you're not even thinking or functioning on your own? I mean, this is
Mhm.
what I'm talking about. And unfortunately, there's a side to what they're doing that actually entangles all this stuff in one big spider web. I mean, it's disgusting, but that's what they're up to. So I think
Mhm.
eventually it'll get disabled because, the universe has the final word on everything, and so does the earth. And,
Right.
you're
You're
seeing it through the
right.
earth changes. Obviously, this earth isn't happy. Mother, whatever you want to call this planet, I think she's getting a little ticked off right now.
I
So,
think you're right. I
yeah.
think you're totally
And
right
people will
about
say
that.
it's the end of the world and it's this and it's that. Well, you have to ask, where have your minds been all these years? I mean, and I'm not saying you have to go pray about anything, but what have you been focusing on that's been manifesting this thing? Because literally, that's what's happening. It's a byproduct of people's belief systems,
Mhm.
teachings, what they're thinking from day to day. They're using the revelations, for example. They can use that as a blueprint. The people, the parties that be, to use that as a blueprint for an agenda, which they're doing right now in front of us on this timeline. So a lot of people think it's the end times when in fact it's just a simulation. And of course that's like Project Bluebeam. So I could go on about all that stuff, but
I know.
I mean it's just like one
We
big web.
could.
When you look at it, I have to kind of laugh at it, but at the same time, I'm very aware of the deception and I'm very aware of what they're capable of. And I never underestimate anybody when they're that
Mhm.
corrupted because anything goes with these guys. There are no morals, there are no conscious
There isn't.
decisions based on caring about anybody or anything. But once again, we were talking about spirits and being haunted, and I think a lot of these people are haunted. Now, you look at somebody who's a remote assassin or somebody who's taken a lot of lives. Now, even if you're a military personnel in the battlefield, I can understand that. But if you're just a malicious person, you're going to be haunted if you do that. People who do evil things to animals are going to be
Mhm.
haunted. So
Mhm.
once again, all these facilities that we were talking about in the beginning, about being haunted, places where people were tortured or hurt or animals were hurt, obviously there's a residual effect and there's an energetic signature that needs to be either cleared or dealt with on some
Yes.
level. So what do you
Yes.
do to deal with that when you experience these things?
Oh, you're right. And animals have souls. The people that do that there are consequences for them on the other side. There is,
I agree.
they don't think so, but, you know, animals have a consciousness, they have souls, they are evolving just like we are, and they should be honored. As everything should be honored on this planet. I mean, God made everything, or the great creator, or the great spirit, whatever you want to call that force. And we are all one. We really are. We're all connected in spiritual ways that we can't even imagine. And so we need to get back to that, which I've talked about. We've just got to get back to nature again, to honoring everything. And the people, especially with our meat, I know it's great to be a vegetarian, but those people that eat meat, just think about how these cattle are treated. When they go into a slaughterhouse, they know they're going to be slaughtered. They feel that fear hormone. And when we eat those animals, we digest that fear hormone. So that's also lowering our vibrational rate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, there's just so many things, and I've seen so much abuse, and thank goodness there are organic, and animals that are being raised on pastures and treated with, honor and respect, and that's what we need to get back to. And it helps the earth too when they're treated that way and they can graze on the land. And, everything goes back, everything is in perfect harmony again. And that's something we just have to get back into.
Yeah, and the answer,
Mhm.
I guess the answer is to what degree do we have to suffer in order for that to happen? And I'm wondering, is there going to be a big cleanse? Because to me, it looks like there's definitely some kind of eugenics program going on, and a certain amount of people will probably be assimilated into something else. Now, that's my own impression of what I see from day to day, and it may not happen in my lifetime, but I suspect it will, to be honest. And I never thought I would see it, but I am witnessing this in this day and age. I'm witnessing a madness that I don't want to participate with at all. It's a madness.
It is. Everything's accelerating.
hmm
Everything.
But it makes perfect sense because as the planetary frequency, and I've mentioned this before, as the planet starts vibrating at a higher and faster level in frequency, this is going to bring up drama bubbles, debris, personal issues, planetary issues. It's going to bring up cellular issues. Anything at the personal level will be like a drama bubble, but at the same time, governments, every world religion is going to have issues. Everything's going to be bubbling up because it's not able to hold and bring in these multidimensional light waves that are descending into this and onto this world. Now, that's happening whether people realize it or not, and it's happening to our bodies. And I know you're familiar with this, and that's about anchoring the energy once again and opening yourself up. But in order to do that, you have to let go of the old patterning and bring in the new patterning, and that's very difficult for a lot of people.
Right.
And I think that's what happens when
True.
they transfer out.
True.
These people who are dying and they're all programmed with these false matrices and false realities. They've never done the spiritual work. They transfer out. Where do they go?
Well, whatever you believe in, when you pass over, that's what you're going to create on the other side. If
Mm-hmm.
you believe there's a hell, and a lot of people have had near-death experiences and have talked about a hell that they see. That's because they believe in a hell, and that's what they're going to see. That's the first thing they're going to see. They're going to see a dark place and maybe lower entities. And if you believe in a heaven, you're going to create that because remember, you are a spiritual being on the other side. You're pure energy,
Mm-hmm.
and you create whatever you believe in. Some people, have belief systems of what they're going to see. I think, the in the Mideast, they believe that when they die, they're going to be with virgins.
Yeah, but not at the expense of
They'll
everybody's lives lost. I'm not buying
right.
that one.
They'll probably see that when they,
Well, but there are
go.
karmic repercussions. My take is that yes, okay, if you're pure of heart and maybe you have a lot of fear, and when you transfer out, you'll probably see exactly what you're wanting to manifest. But these people that think they're getting somewhere by murdering others, no, there's karmic repercussions for that. There's a dark goddess for that. I can guarantee you. I don't believe that these people are going to skate away after doing what they've done. If you take so many lives in the name of your God, whatever it is, then there's something wrong with that, in my opinion.
Right.
And I do believe there are karmic universal repercussions, and
Mhm.
there's something that they don't want to deal with. There's a force out there that they have never encountered that they don't want to face, and I'll tell you what, they're going to have to when they leave.
Well, they will. They
Yeah.
will. There are. And, you have a full life review when you pass over too. That's something
hmm
else that you go through. And everything that you've thought, everything that you've said comes back. You are going to feel it all, and the good, the bad, and that's you are your own judge. There is no God to judge you. You are your own judge. So you are the one that has to, you're the one that has to pay the price. And if you feel that you've harmed others, and you know that you have, I mean, you're going to experience that on the other side. You're going to feel the pain that you inflicted on others. Can you imagine? Probably 100 times more than what the people that felt that pain or what you did to them. You're going to feel that.
Right.
And it's a hard it's really a tough judgment.
It really is, and I mean, there are
Mhm.
psychic wars and there are psychic wars, and I mean, man, this is just one linear chessboard. And I'll tell you what, I always say, walk gently on the earth because you don't want to screw up some things.
Right, right.
There's always
Yeah.
going to be a kick from somewhere.
Yeah. You were talking about Halloween coming up, and
hmm
that's funny. I looked up Harry Houdini, and did you know that he died on Halloween, October 31st, 1926?
Yeah, I heard that.
Isn't that weird?
Right.
And, he was into seances and mediums, and he, started feeling that a lot of it was quackery, fakery, and he was trying to expose them. But it's interesting. He did believe in reincarnation and he did believe in spirits, but he felt that what was going on with a lot of them was just, hocus pocus. And,
Mhm.
there was the spirit trumpets and all that stuff going on. But it's interesting that his wife went to Arthur Ford in October 31st, 1936, and there was a seance that was done in LA. And he was supposed to come through. They were hoping he would come through, and that they both had this message that if he ever died first, that he would give some kind of message that only the two of them would know. And supposedly Arthur Ford did know it, but I guess they had said something in an article that he found. So there was more to it, and they felt, she did anyway, she felt that he was, not a true medium or psychic. But yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Mhm. Right. You
Yeah.
have to take some of the with a grain of salt, but at the same time, with seances, I mean, they can be very powerful, without a doubt. Have you ever done a seance?
Well, I've done kind of a seance. I went to the Magic Castle in LA,
Hmm.
and they were doing a little bit of a seance, but nothing really happened. So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm wondering if it has a lot to do with the people involved in the group also.
I
If you
think
have
so.
people that are really switched on and tuned in, I think you could achieve a lot more. But if you have people who may not believe in it or just kind of, really not plugged into the other
Mhm.
aspects of what's really going on, that could be interesting. I conducted a seance one time and it was very interesting. Yeah.
What would you have happen?
Well, it was interesting because we were bringing in Nostradamus. And
Oh,
I brought in data that I'm like, there was a scribe there because I was like, well, this is what I'm getting in here. And then later on, it was all correlating. And I'm like, well, this is what.
really?
So, yeah, I think there is truth
Oh.
to a lot of that stuff. Even if you don't want to believe it, you can
Hmm.
actually pierce information and archives of data, what we call the Akashic. And I know you're familiar with that, where you can
Sure.
actually draw from that. And it's not even about hocus pocus. It's just about accessing data. It's like going to a great library and getting
Hmm.
information. And that's
Right.
what we've learned to do. And I don't think we learned it from this world. I think we're old souls. I mean, I know you are, and I know I am, and I know a majority of listeners, I'm sure are as well. So literally, it's about tapping into those things and being able to acquire information. And to me, that seems much more exciting than
Hmm.
dealing with the mundane world of false data and false information. I mean, can you imagine if we were actually shown the true history of the world?
I think it would. I don't know if we could comprehend
Well,
everything.
it would just be like, considering with what we know about extraterrestrials, star seeds, and star people, and all the beautiful celestial beings that are in the universe. And you can't tell me they're all evil and wanting to harm and control. I don't buy it. The only evil
No.
I've seen so far is mankind and his agenda. So I
Hmm.
really believe that there are so many doorways that we have not accessed to even understand where we come from and really why we're even here on this world. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's the big exploration. That's it's awesome.
There's so many different beings out there on different planes of existence and realities that it's infinite. It's
Right.
like the cosmos. It's infinite out there, and we're just beginning to just grasp, the scientists and what they're saying about quantum, mechanics, and just all the theories that they're coming up with. But, certainly there are just so many different types. And, I think they're both good and bad, and some that we couldn't even, classify as either good or bad. They just are, and some of these aliens are supposed to be that way. They've lost their emotions. They say the little grays are the ones that are more robotic,
Hmm.
and they don't have human emotions anymore. They don't have, somehow, that it's through evolution they've lost that. And maybe that's what they're looking for, doing all these experiments on humans that they've been doing.
Yeah, they're very robotic, very manufactured. What
Hmm.
comes to mind is also we were talking about spirits and ghosts. What do you think happens to an extraterrestrial when it transfers out? Wouldn't that be interesting?
Oh, well, certainly there's stories of people that have seen their departed loved ones with aliens on the other side. So, maybe, it's all the same plane, that
Hmm.
somehow we're all there. And wouldn't that be something you
Hmm.
pass on and the first thing you see is an alien? I don't know.
That's pretty wild. Well, you never know. Yeah, I try to keep my mind pretty clear of anything so that it doesn't pop in. It reminds me of, once again, Ghostbusters, where you don't think of anything. And of course, they
Right.
manifest that to destroy the world,
It's a Stay Puff.
Right, that's what it was. Yeah, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah,
But that's what it
yeah,
reminds
that's
me of. But yeah, it's funny how you can see the thread in the fabric, and there's always something there that kind of speaks a little truth.
right, right. Absolutely. And there's just so many things. There's ghosts. I don't believe that there's a heaven or a hell. I really don't. And I just think that it's just a place where you can learn when you go on the other side, once you understand where you're at. There are classes there that you can learn on. And anything that you want to take, if you want to get into math or just learn about the stars, astronomy, everything. And I think that's where your prodigies come in, that these children that learn or don't even learn, they know already who they are and what they are and remember these past lives. They write music that seems to be angelic. Like Akiana, who paints, she remembered her life on the other side with the angels and Jesus who came to her, and just amazing things. So,
Hmm.
there's something about that, and especially children with what they see. You have to know that these children are seeing so many things, and usually between the ages of 3 and about 7, they
Hmm.
see spirit guides
Yeah.
and spirits, and they're amazing. So when your child comes to you and says that they see something or something, they were told something, don't dismiss it. It could be quite true. It's
Hmm.
not their imagination.
Yeah, they're very tuned in. Yeah, I agree with you that
Yeah.
heaven or hell is a state of consciousness, just like anything else. It's a state of consciousness. Although I do believe there are beautiful light beings out there who are ascended, master consciousness oriented,
Hmm.
and like the cosmic Christ and whatever you want to call it. I mean, there are plenty of beings like that out there, without a doubt. And of course, I think it's about tuning in and actually doing the spiritual work to achieve that. But yeah, it makes me wonder if Earth isn't an afterlife for some people.
It could be.
Like
Could
this is where
be.
they go
Yeah.
after they die. Wouldn't that be horrible?
Right. Right.
Why do
I
you think?
know.
Yeah, why do you think so many people are afraid to die?
It's the unknown.
Hmm.
You don't remember. And I had someone ask me, well, why? It's in my book too. Why don't we remember our past lives? Well, sometimes we get hints of them in our dream states, or if there's a certain period of time that you love. Some people collect guns from the Civil War. That would certainly tell me that they had a past life
Hmm.
during that time. And children usually remember past lives. They indicate things that they remember, or dreams, or nightmares, or phobias. Phobias, if you have this fear of death in water and you've never had anything happen with water, I would certainly say you probably drowned in water.
Hmm.
And a good example is Natalie Wood, who was deathly afraid of water. And
Hmm.
guess how she died? Now,
Right.
either she had a premonition or it was something from a past life that she brought over and created that situation. Who knows? But yeah, I
Hmm.
think that happens all the time.
I agree. I heard that also. That's very interesting. The mysteries of some of the people that have checked out. The way they did. I do wonder if they didn't attract that through their own fear. Like you obviously polarize with a fear, whatever it might be. But people do that. If they're
Mhm.
afraid of something, they're going to bring it to them. That's just like it's like a magnet. I swear. So literally, they have to overcome the fear, which is a program.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think a lot of people are afraid to transfer out too, and I think maybe it's because they don't know they will see. I have heard a lot of people who have had near-death experiences, and some have seen the angel of death, and some have actually seen what looks like this being in black with a hood coming to them. And now I don't know if that's due to their own programming and maybe their belief
Mhm.
systems or what, but literally there are, I guess, certain types of beings like that out there. What do you think?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a Grim Reaper out there, but maybe there is. I don't know.
Well, it was a shadowy, yeah, being with a hood, and it looked like what people would. Well, the way she described it to me was something like that. But you never know. It could be from their programming as a child as well. But I do think there are spirits of death, whatever you want to call them, I don't even know if I call them a death spirit, but they definitely show up and they are foreboding about what's happening here. Now, I haven't received any real impressions insofar as what's happening in the future timeline here on the world. All I can say is that we're in a situation where I think we need to pay attention and navigate out of it before we all just go into a self-destruct sequence. And I'm talking on a planetary scale. So what do you think we can do? Or, do you pick up on that same pulse?
I do, and I have for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was 7 years old, I had dreams of major earth changes over and over and over. I would feel wind, huge hurricane type wind. I would be standing on a shore on a pier, and suddenly there'd huge waves coming in. I would be in a place where there's a volcano going off with a group of people trying to escape it, earthquakes. And, for a 7-year-old to have these dreams, these recurring dreams over and over and over, and the same thing, was I seeing something from a past life? I don't know. I always felt that I was seeing a future event.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that around this time I would see these things. So here we are.
Right. Very
And
prophetic. Yeah.
yeah,
Did your
so
mother have that too? Did she see?
what's really interesting in college, she wrote a thesis on the shift of the Earth's poles.
Mm,
And
wow.
nobody was talking about that in 1949,
No way.
and she always felt that something was going to happen. So, maybe that was her, her belief. She was very psychic and she remembered a past life. She could astral project. She was very intuitive. So I feel that I inherited all that from her. She
Oh
was
yeah.
pretty amazing.
Right. Well, so are you. Yeah, you're doing great
Oh, well,
work.
thank you so
Yeah.
much. Well,
I
so
try
are
to.
you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we're going through these dark tides. Well, it's nice to know there are other beings like us around. We can
Oh,
bounce
it is.
information off of. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here like till 4 in the morning writing stuff out, trying to figure who I need to talk to about it. I'm sure everybody else is picking up on this. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are tuning in and
Right, right.
understanding that, hey, we're watching it happen before our eyes without any paranoia. I mean, it's just about observation.
If we believe in God and we believe that there is some source out there that has created everything, I don't think that this incredible source that created everything, this great big energy gestalt, or whatever you want to call it, God or great spirit, created everything, that he would allow all these things happen to our planet to be destroyed. Of course, I know there's planets out there that have been destroyed, so
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe because of the free will, is it possible? I don't know. It just seems that um, maybe there are aliens here that are watching too. They're watching to see what we're going to do if we're going to save ourselves. You
Yeah,
know,
well, I see it like the Titanic. I mean, the water's coming in and there are only so many lifeboats and people are, not paying attention from what I've
right,
seen. So
right.
yeah, it's kind of concerning, but at the same time, obviously we're spiritually prepared to go wherever and whenever when that time comes in
Hmm.
the illusion of time. But
Hmm.
but still, I appreciate life, and I know you do too. And I think it's important to spend each time and each moment being happy, trying to be happy,
Yeah,
enjoying your life,
right.
enjoying love, enjoying, whoever you connect in with. I mean, that's very important. And even just interacting with everyday people and even animals, I mean, to me, that's huge. And yet, it seems to me those moments are getting taken away by other things. So even the most
Hmm.
simple thing we can do each day is getting sort of poisoned from
Right,
afar. So that's what I've noticed
right.
anyway. And especially in
Yeah.
America, I've picked up on that it's not the America I grew up in, and it's not the America that I want to see. So,
Right. And it's like there's a poem that says, dance more, love more, laugh more. I think we all need to do that. That raises the vibrations of everything. So if you get out there and just think that way, if, just be the best that you can, the best person, help others, love one another, even if, I know there are some people that you can't really, get along with. But just send them love, bless them, and let them go their way. They're people you just, they can't be changed and
no.
they won't change. They have to learn on their own. And you, like I said, bless them and love them and let them do what they need to do
Hmm.
to evolve.
Right. Well,
And
grace and move on. That's what I always say. You grace things and
right.
move on. I have a hard time blessing people in a nice way if they're real evil, but I can, I detach. I just kind of remotely detach and move on. But I grace the situation and the atmosphere as best I can. But it takes a lot of discipline to do that,
Hmm.
and not everybody's a monk from Tibet, but
Right.
literally,
No,
but
that's
seriously,
true.
it does take a lot of discipline, and we come from that spiritual. I think we come from that spiritual background where we understand the law. But yeah, it's fascinating nonetheless. And so tell everybody where you're going to be at the end of October for Halloween or Samhain for me.
Oh, Halloween?
Yeah, are you going to be? You say you're going to be in Colorado or no?
Oh, no, no, no. Well, coming up sometime.
Okay,
It'll be the mid of, well, it'll be in another week or two. We'll be there.
okay,
So yeah, not for Halloween though. I'll be
okay,
home.
okay. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we all know the veils are very thin this time of year, and of course, if people want to connect with their ancestors in some form or way, is there any way that you use a method that you'd like to share with everybody?
Well, dream state is a great way if you want to communicate to your departed loved ones. And before you go to bed, just tell them that you want to communicate with them. And have a little, a piece of paper or a little notebook beside your bed and say you're going to remember the dream, and you'll wake up, you'll be amazed at how you will remember your dreams. Sometimes they're a little symbolic. Sometimes you will actually have a conversation with them. I think there are windows where our loved ones can come through. I don't think they're here on our beckoning call.
Right.
It's certain times that when they want to get a message to us, they want to comfort us. If they've just passed over, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, maybe a year. I've heard of stories where it's taken 10 years before someone hears from their loved ones.
Hmm.
Electrical things too. Usually they can come through radios, they can turn off lights. Cher of Sonny and Cher says that she believes Sonny turns off her chandelier and turns it on, and she said he's just messing with her. That was something Sonny would do, and
Hmm.
she's had that. Since Robin Williams passed away, there's been a lot of activity in his house. No one lives there,
Hmm.
but they said that the TV keeps coming on.
Oh, wow. Very interesting.
Yeah. So my father lived in a house where in the basement the TV would turn on by itself. And he told me about it. And I went, oh, sure, sure. And I was there alone and it turned on by itself. And then he told me that the water was turning on in the
Hmm.
bathroom. And suddenly this water would turn on. So there was some kind of spirit there.
Oh, yeah. There's
Yeah.
definitely something going on. Now, where was that located?
That was in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Wow, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I've seen things happen. And out in California, I mentioned this before. I've seen stuff go on out there. I've seen little lights in the ceiling go like you have those what do they call the ones where you dimmer lights? I've seen it
Uh-huh.
actually go really, really like from low to high and then back to
Right.
low. I'm like,
Right.
now some people can remote
Someone's
control that.
there.
I mean, there can be hackers that can actually hijack your house, but you
Mhm.
have to look at everything from a different perspective. It's very fascinating nonetheless. So. Interesting to capture. What do you think a ghost is made out of?
Well, a ghost is just like a spirit. If you want to, it's pretty much the same. Ghosts are the ones that get trapped in this earthly plane of ours because they don't realize that they're dead, like I said, or because there was some kind of tragic incidents. They were murdered. They were angry. A lot of spirits are angry when they pass over. Your loved ones aren't going to change their personalities, but there are people when they pass over angry about something, and they hold on to that anger and create a lot of bad things in homes where they can manifest.
Hmm.
But
That's
yeah,
interesting. That's almost like a poltergeist to some degree. But you think all those subtle energy as would burn away after a certain amount of
right.
time. They would be purged from the being after they do their
Hmm.
spiritual trip after when they transition outward. But yeah, I'm sure there are some that like to linger and create a little bit of
They
a
do.
problem for others. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that poltergeists are actually created by children in their early teens that have this incredible energy. And usually it's children that are angry, that are upset with their home life. They're not getting along with their parents, and they start creating all these manifestations and energy. I mean, it's
Hmm.
incredible because, the hormones are raging as teenagers. And I did a reading for a lady that told me that she had things going on, bad things. And I go, well, what's going on? She wouldn't tell me. She
Hmm.
was really weird about it. And then she finally said that there were bad things happening in her house. And I said, do you have a daughter or a son that's in, around 11, 12 years old? And she said, yes. Why? And I said, well, do you get along with your son? And she said, no. And I said, that's your problem right there. I said, he's creating these things because he's unhappy and
Mm-hmm.
he's manifesting this with his energy.
Well, that's interesting. Well, people can certainly do that. They
Hmm.
can summon without intending to summon something also, which of course happens quite a bit. Have you ever seen any spirits in the form of animals or ghosts come in the form of animals?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't, but I've heard of stories. I've read of stories where, people see their deceased dog come back, or one story was I think it was a Labrador that came back. Excuse me. And the dog was still hanging around the house, even though the people had moved, I guess, out of state. And the people next door saw the dog and said, your family has moved on to another place. And the dog never came back again. They never saw the dog.
Hmm. That's very interesting.
I know.
Yeah. I had a cat that transferred out, and that cat came to me afterwards in
Oh,
spirit form.
really?
Yeah, which was very
Wow.
unusual. Yeah. I had a real strong connection with him. I had him for a long time. He was a rescue. Yeah. So I'm a firm believer in that we can connect in
Mhm.
with the spirit of the animals for sure.
Oh, we can.
Yeah.
Animals are so amazing. And, they pick up earthquakes, they pick up spirits,
Hmm.
they warn us,
And they get
they've
into
saved
mischief, like
lives.
my cat.
Yeah. And they're just amazing creatures. And, I know they see spirit all the time. If you see your cat looking up at the ceiling and there's nothing up there, they're seeing something.
Right. And watch for the earth changes too, because with
Mhm.
animals, they pay attention to earthquakes. And of course, they'll warn you ahead of time, I would imagine.
All
The dogs,
right.
especially, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They say when there's a lot of dogs that are missing in a certain area, to look in the lost and found, and that's usually an indication that there's going to be an earthquake.
Hmm.
They start running away.
Right. That makes a lot of sense to me. My dog's gotten skittish a few times around here, energetically speaking, and
Oh,
I think there was
really?
something in the atmosphere. Yeah, outside. I think there was some kind of an energetic he was picking up on. They are very psychic. But we are getting ready to wrap this up pretty soon. Betsy, it's been wonderful to have you on
Well,
this evening.
thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be on your show again, Solaris.
Oh,
You're
I
just
love having.
wonderful.
Well, thank you. Likewise, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I have so much to talk about, and sometimes we get into these other directions, and then we come back, of course. So,
Yeah.
so once again, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, and also your websites and how they can purchase your books.
Okay. Be sure and go to my website. I do have an Earth News One on there that I put all my predictions if I feel earthquakes, any solar events, because I think we've got some solar events coming up. We've got earthquakes going on, any conspiracy, UFO reports. I'm putting all those on there. Lately, there's just been incredible things.
Hmm.
So be sure and go to my website, betseylewis.com. And again, that's Betsey, Betsey, Lewis is LEWIS.com, and just click on Earth News One. My calendar of events is on there, and the shows I'll be on, and also my Rainbow Vision Network. And I've got some great guests coming up in the next few months here, so check that out. And any other information, I've got some great articles on there too about different subjects.
Fascinating. Well, it's incredible. And yeah, everybody check Betsy's site out for sure. And once again, I do want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's been
Thank
awesome.
you.
And
You're
yeah,
awesome.
thank you. But, make sure you keep in touch with us about these solar events. I want to hear more about that. Maybe next time you can come on and talk about that.
Okay.
Let me know
I'd
what you're
love
tuning
to.
into. Yeah. And everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you appreciated the information with Betsy. And of course, stay tuned. I think we have Researcher on a Mission coming up with Dr. J, if I'm not mistaken, who has an awesome show here on Dark Matter Radio Network. Is there anything else, Betsy, you'd like to add? Just we have just a few few minutes left, I believe. But is there anything else you wanted to? We have about a minute left, minute and 30 seconds.
I just want people to be prepared for these earth changes. Trust Mother Earth, put it out there for her to guide you. Trust the animals, trust your intuition, because it's going to be really important now. A lot of things are going to happen, so trust your intuition right now.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And what about safe locations on the map in the U.S.? Any suggestions at all? Or
well, places that have old geology. If you're in a valley somewhere between two mountains and you've got hot springs going on, that tells you that there's some active geology there. I mean, if you're living near Yellowstone, that's going to tell you something right there. But, go places where there's old geology and you're not sandwiched between two mountain, huge mountain places. Are you? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty high up here. I'm pretty high up. I kind of wonder because, things can happen, but you never know. I mean, you just have to kind of trust the universe at some point in the continuum.
And oceans, beaches, of course, and coastal areas. We're going to see a lot of huge waves, maybe not tsunami, but huge rogue waves coming in. There's going to be all that coming in. So,
interesting. You've seen those then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've kind of seen that also. That's interesting. I saw that years and years ago, and I just kind of cast it aside. Yeah, I did get an image of that. Wow. Big walls of water.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the weather. Now we're getting weird weather all over the world, either the droughts and then suddenly there's torrential rains, places that usually don't even have flooding. Here in Twin Falls, Idaho, which is flat, we had huge rains that came up from the south, torrential monsoonal rains, and there was places that were just totally flooded. I mean, that doesn't happen. Phoenix, of course, has had all these rains. I mean, it's going to get crazy. And I believe that there won't be a place on Earth that won't be touched.
I agree. We're out of time here. Betsey, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week.